Disney declared not guilty in long-running copyright battle over Moana script. After a prolonged and closely watched legal battle, Disney has emerged victorious in a copyright dispute over its hit 2016 animated film Moana. A Los Angeles federal jury ruled that Disney did not infringe on the intellectual property of screenwriter Buck Woodall, who had claimed that Moana was based on his original script, Bucky the Wave Warrior. The jury's decision, reached after just 2.5 hours of deliberation, brings an end to a lawsuit that had loomed over Disney for nearly 4 years. Background of the legal battle. The legal saga began in 2020 when Buck Woodall, an aspiring screenwriter, filed a lawsuit against Disney, alleging that the storyline and central themes of Moana were strikingly similar to those in his unpublished script, Bucky the Wave Warrior. According to Woodall, he had completed his script in 2011 and had shared it with a distant relative who worked at one of Disney's subsidiaries. Woodall argued that this connection provided Disney with access to his work and that the similarities between his script and Moana were not coincidental. Woodall maintained that his script featured a young, adventurous protagonist who embarks on a perilous journey across the ocean to save her people, guided by a mystical water spirit. He argued that these story elements were mirrored in Moana, where the titular character sets out on a similar oceanic quest to restore the heart of Te Fiti, guided by the demigod Maui, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. From the outset, Disney denied the allegations, maintaining that Moana was an original creation developed by veteran directors John Musker and Ron Clements, who had previously worked on Disney classics such as The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. Disney's legal team asserted that the creative process behind Moana was well documented and that there was no evidence that anyone involved in the film had access to Woodall's script. The trial and key testimonies. The trial began in early 2025, drawing significant attention from the entertainment industry and intellectual property experts. Over the course of 2 weeks, both sides presented their arguments and introduced evidence to support their claims. Woodall testified that he had completed Bucky the Wave Warrior in 2011 and shared it with a relative who was employed by a Disney-affiliated company. He claimed that the similarities between his script and Moana were too significant to be coincidental. There are only so many ways you can tell a story about a young girl navigating the ocean, Woodall argued. But when you add in the spiritual connection to the water, the themes of self-discovery, and the role of a larger-than-life guide, it becomes clear that they took inspiration from my work. Woodall's case rested heavily on his assertion that the Disney employee relative had shared his script with someone at Disney. However, the defense called this relative to the stand, and her testimony contradicted Woodall's narrative. The woman testified under oath that she had never shown or discussed Woodall's script with anyone at Disney. "I never shared his script with anyone," she said. "I didn't even mention it to my colleagues. It just wasn't something that came up." Disney's legal team, led by attorney Moats Kaba, argued that Moana was developed independently and that any similarities between the two works were purely coincidental. Kaba presented internal development notes, early story drafts, and concept art dating back to 2012, well before Woodall's script would have been accessible to anyone at Disney. "They had no idea about Bucky the Wave Warrior," Kaba said during his closing arguments. "They had never seen it, never heard of it. This story came from John Musker and Ron Clements' extensive research into Polynesian mythology and their own creative vision." Kaba also highlighted the extensive research that Musker and Clements had conducted in the South Pacific while developing Moana. The directors had consulted with Polynesian historians, navigators, and cultural experts to ensure that the film reflected authentic Polynesian traditions and myths. This, Kaba argued, was the true foundation of Moana's story, not Woodall's script. The jury's verdict. After 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury, composed of 6 women and 2 men, returned with a verdict in Disney's favor. The jury found that Woodall had failed to provide sufficient evidence that Disney had access to his script or that any copying had occurred. Once the jury determined that there was no evidence of access, they did not even consider the question of whether the two works were substantially similar. Without access, the similarities, if any, were rendered legally irrelevant. Following the verdict, Disney released a statement expressing satisfaction with the outcome. "We are pleased with the jury's decision, which confirms that Moana is an original work of art created by the talented team at Walt Disney Animation Studios," the statement read. "We remain committed to telling stories that inspire and entertain audiences around the world." Woodall, however, expressed disappointment with the outcome. "I still believe that there are too many similarities for it to be a coincidence," Woodall said. "But I respect the jury's decision and will take time to consider my next steps." The creation of Moana. Moana was released in 2016 and quickly became one of Disney's most successful animated films. The movie grossed over $645 million worldwide and received widespread critical acclaim for its stunning animation, compelling storytelling and representation of Polynesian culture. The film tells the story of Moana, a young Polynesian girl who sets out on a daring journey to restore the heart of Te Fiti and save her island from environmental collapse. Along the way, she is aided by the demigod Maui, voiced by Dwayne Johnson, who provides comic relief and emotional depth to the narrative. Musker and Clements have long maintained that the inspiration for Moana came from their extensive research into Polynesian navigation and mythology. The filmmakers spent time in Fiji, Samoa, and Tahiti, speaking with local elders and cultural experts to ensure that the film's portrayal of Polynesian history and traditions was accurate and respectful. "We wanted to tell a story that was rooted in real Polynesian history and culture," Musker said in a 2016 interview. "The ocean plays a central role in Polynesian life, and we wanted to capture that spirit in Moana's journey." The film's success also extended to its soundtrack, which featured original music by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Opataya Foai, and Mark Mancina. Songs like "How Far I'll Go" became instant hits and contributed to the film's cultural impact. Copyright challenges in the entertainment industry. The Moana lawsuit highlights the growing number of copyright disputes in the entertainment industry, where allegations of idea theft and plagiarism are increasingly common. The rise of streaming platforms and independent content creation has made it easier for creators to claim that their work has been copied without permission. However, legal experts point out that proving copyright infringement in creative works is notoriously difficult. Under U.S. copyright law, a plaintiff must demonstrate that the defendant had access to their work and that the two works are substantially similar. Even if two stories share common themes or tropes, this alone is not enough to prove infringement.